Alright, I'm going to do a video today about the Sony DSC-RX100 camera. Now, I'm not going to review it. I'm not going to tell you all how great of a camera this is or how it compares to my $3,000 DSLR, because I don't have a $3,000 DSLR. As a matter of fact, I don't know much about DSLRs. I am a point and shoot camera person. I use a camera as a tool to get a specific job done. I don't do it as a hobby or semi-professional or anything like that. I do videos for YouTube, I do pictures for eBay, I do pictures for my website, and on a rare occasion I'm on vacation, I'll take pictures on vacation. If I'm at a car show, I'm taking pictures of cars. But I'm not that type of person who walks down the street taking pictures of daily life or running around down at the park with a tripod trying to capture a sunset. That's not me. So I'm not going to do a review of this camera. Matter of fact, you don't even see the camera, you see the box, because I'm using the camera to film this video. With that said, I'm going to tell you why I chose the RX100 as a point and shoot person who knows maybe a little bit more than your average camera consumer. I, like a lot of people, do read a lot of reviews. I watch a lot of videos, product videos. I like to get feedback from professionals and find out what their opinion is concerning these different products. And I narrowed my choices down to several cameras. The Sony NEX, probably a 5N or a 5R, and not the 7 because of the price. The 7 was out of my price range. And the Sony RX100. I was leaning towards the Sony NEX 5N because I can get one of those used for $350, $400. It is a great camera, does great photos, does great video. Two negatives for me: it's older technology. I would be buying it used, no warranty, no guarantee of the condition. And three, the lens that it comes with, that's kind of the weak point of that particular camera. A lot of people like the camera, they don't like the lens, or they recommend buying a higher quality lens. Again, I'm a point and shoot person. I'm not going to be swapping out lenses. That's not me, you know. I don't want to deal with that. That's just not me. So the NEX was small enough to make it close in size to a point and shoot camera that it's somewhat pocketable. At least I could take it around fairly easy, not like a DSLR, which would definitely not be easy to carry. The big drawback on the RX100 that really was making me hold off was the price. 650 bones. I just found that tough to swallow. And you know, even finding one pre-owned was, I wasn't going to get one as cheap as the NEX 5N. Now what happened was, I can read reviews, I can look at videos all day long, but in reality, I like to know what something looks like in person. I like to hold it, feel it in my hand, play with the controls. I wanted to see the NEX camera, and I wanted to see its articulating LCD screen and take a look at the accessories that were available for it. So I went out to a few places and different retail outlets that had these types of cameras, and of course they were on crack with the prices that they wanted, but at least they had the cameras there that I could go and take a look at and get my hands on. And I actually stopped into Best Buy for some other reason, and probably to pick up some paper or printer paper or something like that. Walked by the camera aisle and I was like, oh hey, they have the RX100. So I stopped in take a look at the RX100 and was like, oh, this is a very nicely built camera. It's very nice in person when you get your hands on it. Very solid construction, very high quality. And of course, whenever I go to Best Buy or most of these places, I always look for most of these places have a locked cabinet of some sort where they have their customer returns or their refurbs, whatever you want to call it. So I kind of gravitate towards that area because I'm a frugal spender, so I'm always trying to get the best deal on whatever I'm looking for. Some people just have to have it brand new in the box. I'm not that type of person. Well, anyway, at my particular Best Buy, I was gravitated over to the cabinet that had the customer returns and the refurbs in it. And what did I find? I was actually looking for an NEX camera, but there was actually a Sony RX100 in their return cabinet. It was a customer return. So I was thinking, well, yeah, I'm not going to save any money. These guys are going to want a fortune for this one, but they didn't. It was very cheap. So I'm thinking, all right, well, was something wrong with this, or is it missing components? So I found someone to take it out of the cabinet for me and open up the box, and it was brand new in the box. It was obvious that somebody bought this camera, put the battery in, probably took a few pictures. They didn't even take the protective plastic off the LCD screen. And then return the camera. So no marks on it, full warranty, the whole deal. And of course, you know, immediately my negotiating mindset kicks in, and I'm in Best Buy negotiating with somebody in there. I did manage to get them to knock off another 10% on this camera. And that brought the price down to $458. A bit more than what I was going to spend on an NEX 5N. But when it was all said and done, I was probably going to be looking at $400 for an NEX 5N used, well over a year old, no warranty, versus $458 for this Sony. New in the box, full warranty. That was a no-brainer, so I picked this up at Best Buy. So that's my Best Buy story. That's what kind of pushed me over the edge on this camera was, you know, a $450 price point is much easier to swallow for this camera than a $650 price point. And that's $650 plus tax. So, I picked up the RX100, which is obvious. This camera is phenomenal. It looks like a point and shoot, but it has the functionality, the control feature set of a DSLR, and it takes pictures like a DSLR. Although some people will say it's not quite as good here because it has this or blah or blah or blah, and it's like, wow, you're comparing this Sony, you know, RX100 to a $3,000 DSLR that has a $1,000 lens on it. I would expect that DSLR to be better just because of the price variance. But for $450, there's nothing on the market that I could find that even comes close to this camera with its video quality and its low light photography capabilities and its feature set and its adjustability. But keep in mind, this is an opinion coming from a point-and-shoot camera person. And, you know, I've never even taken photos with a DSLR. Now that I mention that, this camera has a feature-rich array of settings, like a DSLR. Sensory overload for me, aperture, shutter speed, adjustable ISOs, adjustable exposure settings. I'm still going through the menu. What I did was, Sony has the user manual online. I sat in front of my computer with the user manual online and went through all these features. I went through every single feature because I don't know 3/4 of the features that are on here, because normal point and shoots don't give you that type of adjustability. And I'm looking at other advanced features. I'm used to seeing JPEGs, and now I have RAW. I'm like, okay, RAW, and that's a whole nother issue. And the video codec that you used is different, and so it's an educational process to figure out what all of these features do, how you can adjust them. And once you're familiar with that, you got to figure out what works in different scenarios. And I'm far from being anywhere close to being competent with the feature set. I will tell you what I'm using for settings on the RX100 after taking in excess of 2,000 pictures, and that's probably 2,000 pictures of 3 or 4 different items, because I'll take a picture with one setting on, I'll take another picture with a different setting, and so on, of the same item with the camera on the tripod, the same lighting situation, and I'll just repeat that because I want to see what each one of these features does to the photo. And that takes a bit of time. And as a novice, I had to spend an awful lot of time taking an awful lot of pictures to get familiar with what all of these different settings do and how they affect my picture quality. And I'm not even done. But I have come up with a setting, or several settings, that work for my scenarios. That's semi-low light indoor photo shooting, video shooting, and outdoor shooting. So when you buy a Sony RX100, you can download some software from Sony called Play Memories, and they have an image data converter. I haven't really used the image data converter. I think that's for converting RAW files or doing something with RAW files. The Play Memories program will allow you to connect your camera, and it will download photos, and it allows you to play back photos and do certain levels of editing with your photos. It's not some advanced photo editing program or anything. I like the Play Memories program for several reasons. One, it displays the properties of each photo. When I make a bunch of setting changes on the camera and I take a photo, Play Memories will show me what settings are attached to each photo, so I can keep track. Hey, this photo looks good, what settings did I have? Or hey, this photo looks terrible, what settings did I use? It allowed me to kind of gauge which settings worked and which settings didn't by looking at the properties of each JPEG. So with that said, what am I using right now for regular photos? I'm using a mode which is, well, I call it P mode, but it's the program mode, and it's adjusted. You adjust it with this dial up here on top, mode selection dial, or whatever you want to call it. It is it's like an automatic mode, but some aspects are adjustable. So I use that mode, and I have it set. I have my image quality set to 20 megapixel, which is the highest. I'm using a 4:3 aspect ratio. That's kind of up to you. You could use 3:2 or 4:3 or 16:9. I've tried it on all three of those settings, and I end up cropping a lot of images, so I'm using the 4:3 aspect ratio. The autofocus area, I'm using a center autofocus area, ISO set to auto, metering mode set to multi, white balance set to auto or AWD. And I also have DRO set to auto. I'll talk about that in a minute. The picture style is standard, and when you choose a picture style, I believe it's called picture style, you can go in and you have some adjustability. You can adjust the contrast and the saturation and the sharpness. And I've tweaked all of those settings. I've upped the contrast, I've upped the saturation, I've put them in the negative, I've upped the sharpness, and I've dialed down the sharpness. And what I've settled on is contrast 0, saturation 0, and a sharpness at 2. That gives me the best looking picture in my opinion. Now keep in mind, I'm not doing any post-processing. I'm a point and shoot person. I want my camera to be set to take a picture so I have a JPEG and I can upload my JPEG and be done with it. I'm not going to import it into Photoshop or some other program and tweak settings. That's not me. I'm a point and shoot person. And I believe the last setting, exposure compensation 0. Now the only thing that I vary is this mode I'm describing works great indoors, it works great outdoors. I don't need a flash. But depending upon what I'm taking a picture of, I can get a better picture if I use the flash. So if I'm using this mode, I'll take a picture without the flash, and I'll take a picture with the flash. Sometimes the flash picture is better, sometimes the picture without the flash is better. But I take them both. So that's my main mode right now. And coming back to the DRO, I don't recall what that means off the top of my head, but there's several different options for that. And the DRO in auto mode, what it does when you take a picture, it snaps 3 pictures in succession. And I believe it changes the exposure level and then it overlays those images. So when you go to download your images, you end up with 2 images. You end up with one with no exposure compensation, and you end up with another that has exposure compensation, if I'm saying that correct. That mode works really good for me. I can capture a lot of detail in black objects that normally just act like a sponge and suck up all the light. In daytime, you probably don't need to use that mode, but I'll talk about that in a minute. But that works for me in my situation. So those are the settings I use. If you're a point and shoot person, and you're going to pick up a camera like this, start with those settings and see what you think. I mean, I'm well over 2,000 pictures, and these are the best settings for me in my environment. Now, one other mode I use, which is also a automatic mode, it's called Superior Auto. The problem with Superior Auto is a lot more of the features are auto in that mode. So I cannot change the DRO to auto. It's set to something else. And indoors, those pictures end up being kind of dark. So that mode outdoors is great, but indoors, not so great. Indoors, I would have to use the flash, and even using the flash, it's not quite as good as the P mode. So those are the 2 modes I've been using now up to this point. You know what my settings are. Again, it's completely, up to your level of expertise and how you want to do it. This camera can be full auto and it does an awesome job in full auto, or you could go completely manual. You can take control of practically everything on this camera. and adjust it yourself. Manual focusing, shutter speed, exposure compensation, ISO settings. And I did try that. You know, I went straight manual mode, tweaking everything myself and adjusting the aperture and shutter speed and on and on and on. And at the end of the day, I ended up looking at a lot of really crappy pictures because I don't know what I'm doing. And for me, the auto mode makes a dummy like me take really good photos. So I like the adjustability. I love the ability to tweak settings. I love to be able to play around with the shutter speed. It's kind of cool. I mean, if I'm taking a picture at night and I have a camera on a tripod and I'm able to get some really great pictures at night, that's great. You just can't do that with a normal point and shoot camera. With this camera, you can. If you want to. If you want to get that into it, you can make this camera act just like a DSLR. It's got that type of adjustability. So these are just my opinions and what I've found taking pictures in my environment. You know, if you're some professional photographer and you know everything about cameras, you don't need to talk down to me because I'm just going to delete your posts. You know, you're very knowledgeable and that's great. I'm not. I'm describing this camera from my point of view, and this video is geared towards people that are not professional or semi-professional enthusiast photo takers. You know, people who just need a good camera for vacations and doing daily photos of kids or taking videos. Man, this camera really does it. So that's what I have to say on that. And if you're new to the game and you pick up this camera, try some of those settings. You know, it's at least it gives you a point to start, and you won't have to start cold turkey like I did. And then you can tweak these settings from there. So hopefully you found something useful out of this long-winded video.